Hey guys, welcome back. Now, today is probably the most important day of the month for the crypto market, as we get to hear the latest from Jay Powell and the Federal Reserve. So last week we did get the latest CPI print, which did beat expectations. However, the big question is, was it good enough for Jay Powell to do a big pivot and finally end QT, quantitative tightening? And so in this video, we'll be covering the latest CPI print from last week. Was it good enough? And how will that impact the Fed today? Then the latest on US liquidity. Do we think quantitative easing is finally coming our way? Obviously massive for the altcoin market. And then we'll finish answering the question, has this market peaked early? And will we even get a blow off top this year? Okay, so first up with the latest CPI print coming in last week, beating expectations. The question is, was it good enough? Okay, so this is the latest US inflation data, and we're trying to answer the question, was this latest print good enough for the Fed to do the major pivot and bring back quantitative easing? Well, unfortunately, I do remain skeptical. This video is going out before we find out what the Fed is going to do. But when I look at the previous 6 months, let's say going back to September, this was the lowest reading when CPI was 2.4. And we just had a month of going higher, going higher, going higher, all the way to 3 at the start of the year, January. And then this is the first month being February, where it had broken the trend and come down to 2.8%. And remember, the Fed's target is 2%. So although this did beat expectations was 2.9, I don't think this is good enough for a major change with the Fed. I have a feeling they need this to come down even further before they change course. But I'll be more than happy to be proved wrong later today when Jerome Powell speaks. Now, when we look at trueflation, which is more real-time inflation, although the last print was February, although they did get the direction correct that it was coming down, trueflation says it should have come down a lot more. So yes, from January to Feb, it has come down, a bit of a pop up. And then it's also predicting there's going to be another sharp drop in March. Trueflation saying 1.4%. Unfortunately, we are going to have to wait another month before we get this reading. And obviously, Jerome Powell's decision is today. So that is the latest on what's going on with inflation. And with me, I personally don't think it's come down far enough. Now, anyone in crypto and especially altcoins is really wanting QT to finally come to an end. Now, when we look at M2, now this has broken trend from March 2024 and has been slowly increasing. But when you compare it to the levels that were going on 2020, 2021, where you get the massive booms, clearly it's nowhere near these levels. But M2 is part of the equation and the cycle is reversing. We're just at the very early stages. And then for me, when it comes to liquidity, this is probably the main chart to look at. This is Bitcoin's price, and overlaid we have the Fed's balance sheet. And you can see when crypto is doing an absolute boom and setting crazy new all-time highs, the Fed's balance sheet is expanding. This is QE. And then since the high, we had the peak, and for 3 years now, since 2022, the Fed's balance sheet has been contracting, and this is QT. And everybody is waiting for this finally to be reversed. Obviously, the crypto market is really struggling to get a major breakout in the middle of QT. Now, when it comes to interest rates, crypto can still go crazy if interest rates are high. So for me, today's decision on the rates is not so important as the meeting afterwards. The big thing we are waiting for is for the Fed to change course on QT. Now, with crypto, fear and greed right back into fear levels. And not too long ago, it was extreme fear. This is when you get the big market sell-off. And if we see, there's been a very healthy correction to Bitcoin. What did it do from peak? It's about 30% drop. And obviously, even many of the top altcoins went over 50%. And then anyone who is in meme coins, you're looking at 70, 80% drop. So lots of fear in the market. But as you can see, this is really nothing new to crypto. These sort of big epic drops happen again and again and again. So we're now in the cycle of extreme fear and people are questioning, is this now over? So let's just finish up with a couple of points. The first one, just stated, is that this is nothing new. These drops happen again and again and again and again and again. So let's look at some of the worst ones. Even in the deepest crypto winters, when you feel at your absolute worst and the market's bottoming, only by giving it some time do you realize that these were an amazing place to get started or buy more. As this is when Bitcoin was around 15,000. Now everyone's panicking that it's at 83,000. It wasn't that long ago, 2024, when we were going through this mid-cycle correction that went on for several months. Very boring and quite painful as well. I mean, this one dropped. Bitcoin was about, again, 33%. And even in the absolute worst crash, obviously altcoins going down much, much more. Only by fast forwarding a couple of months did we realize this was an amazing time to buy. Or if you don't have the money, if you just held on, everything was fine. Same here, if you buy or just when you feel at your absolute worst, amazing time to buy, amazing time to buy or just hold, amazing time to buy and just hold. In fact, every single major crash for the last 7 years has been an amazing time to buy or just hold, except the one we're going through right now. And so chances are this too shall pass. In 3 to 6 months, we're probably going to be up here, blasted through 100,000, and I'll be making videos saying that, remember guys, when you felt at your absolute worst, this was an amazing time to buy or just hold on. Now, when it comes to the fear and greed, we have to remember that it's all just cyclical. It goes from extreme fear to extreme greed to extreme fear to extreme greed. But we so quickly forget this. We're now just in a fear cycle. And if we look at the fear and greed index over the longest period, going back to 2018, there are times when it's extreme fear, there's times when it's extreme greed, times when it's extreme fear, times when it's extreme greed. And this is just an oscillator going back and forward, back and forward, back and forward. I remember it was only, well, personally for me, January that my portfolio was setting new all-time highs. And all of a sudden it flips and we now went down to extreme fear. But this just shows that this too shall pass, only a matter of time until we get the next crazy cycle. It goes into extreme greed. And all of a sudden, everyone's calling for $300,000 Bitcoin. Everyone's buying meme coins again, and the whole thing changes. And in times of extreme fear, I always find it quite useful to listen to the OGs. So to finish up, as CZ of Binance recently just said, you know how people say that, oh, he's so lucky that he bought his Bitcoins, or this could be crypto so early? Well, what you're feeling right now is the pain that we've had to endure many times before. Holding is never easy. So remember, guys, this too shall pass. Today probably is the most important day of the month for the crypto market, as we'll be finding out, or have already found out depending on when you watch this video, what is the Fed going to be doing. Will we finally see an end to 3 years of QT? Although US liquidity is still only one player globally, it is still probably the most important one. And if I had to guess, I'd say inflation at 2.8% probably isn't good enough for the Fed to do a major pivot. And so what does this all mean? Well, I personally think it just means the big crypto bull market gets delayed, and not that it's over. And as CZ said, holding is never easy. So there you are, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Now we'll soon see whether the crypto market begins to turn around or it gets delayed another month. If you do have any burning questions that you must get answered, then use super thanks below. However, just remember to get rid of 100% of the comment spam and trading bots that plague YouTube comments. We are trying out the new super thanks commenting system. So to get your question or comment read and replied to, or just to say thanks, then use super thanks below. And for now, just to say, if you did enjoy anything in the video, then drop a like, and a big thank you to everyone who does, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.